This collection of clients were really the mob people. The big break was when mobster Frankie Yale entered the shop with his girlfriend. Frank Costello, he did his apartment, and Lucky Luciano was met in Sing Sing when he went to prison.
His name was James Mont, aka James Pes, aka Demetrius Pedagoslu, the name he was given at his birth in Istanbul, and his life and work were a mind-boggling mixture of high and low. From the early 1930s and into the 1960s, James Mont was one of the most prominent designers and decorators on the East Coast. His forte was creating furniture that offered a stylish and dramatic yet modern take on historical forms and details. Most of his designs drew on Asian influences, though he often employed classical elements in his pieces.
Jimmy's career started during Prohibition.
His claim to fame was the design and execution of speakeasies. He would design a speakeasy and it would be torn down by the police with their hatchets and sledgehammers. That night, Jimmy's got his whole crew in the speakeasy redoing it, and it's operational the next day.
At its best, Mont's work was synonymous with Hollywood glamour, captured in sumptuous materials and luxurious finishes. The flamboyance of Mont's designs were exceeded only by that of his lifestyle. His friends and clients included show business figures such as Bob Hope, Irving Berlin, and Lana Turner, as well as mob kingpins Frank Costello and Lucky Luciano. According to a 1950s radio interview on the famous Tex and Jinx show, Mont was at his peak, running 3 shops in New York in the San Moritz Hotel on both Park and Madison Avenue.
I understand that you designed something for John Barrymore.
That's right.
Well, what sort of taste did Barrymore have?
Mr. Barrymore had a very good taste, but of course he was under the influence of liquor very strongly, and he was very reckless so far as spending the money.
Well, you say he spent money freely, but was the money good?
Well, you know, you sell furniture. After all, you want to get paid.
And didn't you get paid by Barrymore?
Well, a little bit, not much.
Mont was a suave and gregarious habitué of cocktail lounges, enjoyed flashy cars and the company of chorus girls.
Why was the Mafia in particular attracted to Mont as a designer? What was it about his aesthetic or him that really made them all gravitate as once?
It all happened from the first introduction when Jimmy opened up his little electrical shop with Masseria. So the word got out. He did a fabulous job. He's a very clever boy.
And he partied with them too. Tell me about him entertaining the mob.
Well, the mob liked girls, just like Jimmy, and that helped a lot.
And they like booze.
Yeah, and there was always a floor show in his apartment. He could insult you right to your face, and you say, "I'll never come back here." You're there the next day. It's that kind of an attraction.
Really? That entertaining, that witty.
Exactly.
As a designer, his creativity, perfectionism, and delight in innovation produced both elegant, high-style interiors and over-the-top kitsch. Hot-headed and mercurial, Mont's bad temper and willfulness repeatedly got him in trouble and debt during a roller coaster career lasting 4 decades.
Tell me how James Mont ended up in prison in Sing Sing.
This lady was a lampshade manufacturer. She had gone up to Jimmy's Park Avenue apartment for a bill that was outstanding. Of course, Jimmy, with his excitement with women, attempted to have an affair with her. She wasn't in the mood, so he hit her across the face. She left the apartment, and it was with a broken jaw. So after a while, the case came up, and she was after him, but then she committed suicide. He got 5 to 10 years, and he got out in 4.5.
Mont said that he learned many of his techniques through extended experimentation during his years in prison. Pieces often had 4 different undercoats in different colors, then 3 or 4 layers of gold and silver leaf, then graining with steel wool to create an antique look, and then finished with a tinted lacquer. Luscious finishes which included distressed, wormy, and limed woods, layers of silver and gold leaf, lustrous, deeply lacquered pieces with 15 hand-polished layers were typical.
Tell me about James Mont's relationship with women. What do you remember?
He was notorious, womanizer. He liked chorus girls. He usually picked them up after a show or whatever. At times, he would ask a dress shop that he decorated for to stay open because he's bringing over the girls.
So he would trade his work
His work
for clothing to
Correct.
get women.
Loosey-goosey as he was in his personal life, James Mont was serious when it came to his work. As a custom designer, his taste always ran towards opulence and drama, and a typical Mont interior was filled with frequently big and unusually comfortable pieces. When Mont was on his game, he produced custom pieces on a grand scale that flashed a distinctive Hollywood glamour and exoticism of the Orient. Mirrors, faux animal skins, vivid colors, and plenty of silver and gold. Pieces were large, sleek, exquisitely crafted, and often fabulous.
So when he entertained, what kind of parties did he have?
He had a very big cross-section of all sorts of people, from gays to lesbians to straight people, and the parties were fantastic. In fact, he would be carrying on with somebody's wife in the bathroom while he's out there having a cocktail. During the winter, snow was banked up in the garden, and the champagne bottles were put in the snow.
What about his sex life?
His sex life was very active. In fact, one day I'm there, another couple customers were there, and another gentleman.
This is in the showroom.
No, this is in his apartment,
In the
next
apartment,
door.
okay.
And he tells us in about 5 or 10 minutes, he says, the bell's gonna ring, and you'll excuse me while I have sex. So the bell rings in 5:10, and in walks Laura Lovely, very good-looking hooker. So he excuses himself, and he gets finished. He comes back in about 20 minutes. He comes in absolutely balls ass naked, no clothes on at all. She sits down next to me. The maid was cooking a stew or something. She brings in a big plate of stew, puts it on her bare lap for her to eat, and she'd eat away absolutely nude. And we excused ourselves, went into the dining room.
What kind of memories are the most poignant? Which are the ones that you remember him the most vividly?
I think his temper really stands out. One morning he had asked me before going to his shop to take his shoes down to be shined by the shoemaker, and I had forgotten to do this. And he came home and they weren't done. I got a beating that you could call a mafioso beating, which was being kicked in the belly, in the head. And it's a good thing Grandma was there, because she interceded and stopped the whole ruckus.
Were there any celebrities in particular that came and frequented the showroom, or that Mont was particularly friends with?
Jimmy and Bob Hope met each other at a nightclub, and I guess they got friendly. And then Jimmy was instrumental in introducing Dolores to Bob Hope.
James Mont loved the notoriety of celebrities and gangsters, and the kicks of fashionable nightclubs, booze, and bimbos. His salacious personal life was anchored oh so briefly by a marriage in 1937 to a 25-year-old Korean-American beauty named Helen Kim.
They were married. Naturally, Bob Hope was best man, and the entire marriage lasted 30 days, and she committed suicide. It was a fantastic shock to everybody. She put on her kimono, and she put on her favorite musical...
Madame Butterfly, I think.
Madame Butterfly, correct. Then she hooked up an enema hose to the gas range and put the other end of the hose down her stomach. She put on the gas, and that finished her off, except when the fire department came, she was still alive. They tried to pump her out, but no avail. She died.
She killed herself, and what happened?
She killed herself, and then the papers picked it up. It was front page news. The Daily News had a full picture of her face on the front page. And of course, the Times followed it up, and whoever else was around.
Much of James Mont's best work was created in the 5 years right after the war and his release from prison. Partnering with Carl Gebhardt, a skilled craftsman in woodworking and cabinetry, he launched Modern Modes, operating from a 5-story building on East 52nd Street in Manhattan and employing some 50 workers.
Mont is considered, I think, out of all of his contemporaries, to be one of the most clever furniture designers there was. I think that part of his appeal to his mobster friends was that he created furniture that had compartments for liquor, guns. This all created back to Prohibition. Tell me about the kind of furniture he made to hide booze, guns.
Since he was in partners with Conrad Gebhardt, who was a fabulous cabinet maker, he had the know-how or the help from Conrad to do these clever compartments in pieces of furniture and cabinetry. And Conrad would do such a fantastic job, you wouldn't even know where the seam of an opening is.
What were people usually trying to hide?
Anything from guns to jewelry.
And how big was his staff?
The staff consisted of about 40 to 50 man payroll. Many times he didn't have it. He would ask me to go to Brooklyn somewhere, which was a mobster's home, and there's a big payroll there waiting for me to bring back. They liked him that much that they took him out of tight binds like that many times.
Mont designed for people who had or wanted to look as if they had plenty of money. Some of his pre-World War II work leaned towards too muchness, but over the years he refined his sensibilities. His later work is characterized by a strong Oriental flavor, perhaps the influence of his native land. He is closely identified with Chinese modern, a term he claimed to have coined. Never accused of subtlety, he nonetheless was able to produce dramatic interiors of elegance and high style, frequently managing to stay just this side of excess.
And what about the approval process? I understand that he was a real perfectionist.
When a customer used to come into the showroom and he would see that she's interested in Jimmy Mont, but she still has to be sold. And the way he would do this, he would take her on a tour of the entire plant. He'd go up to the second floor and immediately blow his topper at the German upholsterer and tell him that it's the wrong fabric on this piece, and he would proceed to get a knife and slash the entire sofa.
Underscoring his sense of perfection.
Yeah. Of course, the woman is so impressed by this eccentric artist that she has to give him the order for decorating her place.
There's a lot of different rumors about his death. There have been accounts that he died in Greece and that his body was brought back here. There's another story I was told that he immolated himself in bed with a cigarette.
That is possible.
How did he die?
Cirrhosis of the liver.
It was a sad ending.
Yeah.
Did you go to his funeral?
No. Nobody identified him. There was no funeral, no nothing.
Do we know what happened to him? We don't know where he went.
I think he's buried in Potter's Field.
Wow. So from the top to the very bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite an ending. Quite a life.
Yeah, it was full, all right.